Why the palace is blocking Leonor's potential suitors. In the world of modern monarchies, image, tradition, and long-term stability often matter more than personal freedom. And nowhere is that tension clearer right now than in the life of Princess Leonor, the future Queen of Spain. Over the past few years, Leonor has become one of the most closely watched young royals in Europe. As the eldest daughter of King Felipe VI and Queen Letizia, she is not simply a princess growing up in the spotlight, she is the heir to the Spanish throne. Every appearance, every speech, every step in her education is carefully planned. But recently, a quieter question has begun circulating among royal watchers and media outlets alike. Why does it seem like the palace is quietly blocking any possibility of romantic relationships for Leonor? The truth is more complicated than rumors suggest. For centuries, royal marriages have never been just about love. They have been about alliances, reputation, diplomacy, and the survival of the monarchy itself. Even in the 21st century, when royal families try to appear modern and relatable, the reality behind palace walls is often very different. For Leonor, the expectations are enormous. She is preparing to eventually lead one of Europe's oldest monarchies. Spain's royal family has spent decades rebuilding public trust after periods of controversy and political tension. And because of that history, the palace is extremely cautious about anything that could create headlines or instability. This means that even something as normal as dating becomes complicated. At Leonor's age, many young people are exploring relationships, meeting new friends, and discovering their independence. But for a future queen, every friendship can become a news story, and every photograph can trigger speculation around the world. The palace knows this all too well. In fact, insiders say the strategy around Leonor's personal life is deliberate. The royal household wants her public image to focus on duty, education, and leadership, not romance. This approach is not unusual in royal history. When King Felipe VI himself was younger, his relationships were also watched carefully. Royal advisors understood that the wrong relationship could spark political debate or media scandal. And Spain's monarchy, which had only been restored in the late 20th century, could not afford unnecessary controversy. So today, that same caution is being applied to Leonor. Right now, the princess is in a critical stage of her preparation for the throne. She has already studied abroad at the prestigious UWC Atlantic College in Wales, where she completed part of her international education. Living there exposed her to students from across the world, giving her the global perspective expected of modern leaders. But even during that time, palace staff worked quietly to ensure her experience remained as normal, and as controlled, as possible. Security teams monitored her surroundings. Public appearances were limited, and the media was kept at a respectful distance. Because when you are the future queen, privacy becomes a rare luxury. After finishing her studies there, Leonor entered military training in Spain, another key step in preparing for her future role as head of state. Military service is part of the tradition for Spanish monarchs, and it reinforces the connection between the crown and the nation's institutions. This period of training is also one of the main reasons the palace is unlikely to encourage any serious relationships right now. Military life is demanding, structured, and highly disciplined. Leonor's schedule is filled with training exercises, official ceremonies, and intensive preparation for leadership responsibilities. Adding a public relationship into that environment would only complicate things. But the palace's caution goes deeper than scheduling conflicts. One of the greatest concerns surrounding royal relationships is the intense scrutiny placed on anyone who becomes romantically connected to a future monarch. The moment someone is rumored to be dating Leonor, their entire life would likely be examined by the media, family background, personal history, social media posts, friendships, and even childhood memories. For a young person who never expected such attention, that kind of spotlight can be overwhelming. Royal advisors know this, and they also know that the wrong narrative, fair or unfair, could quickly spiral into a controversy that distracts from Leonor's role as a future leader. In today's digital world, where a single rumor can spread globally in minutes, the palace's strategy is simple: avoid the situation entirely. Another factor is timing. Royal families often prefer heirs to focus on their public duties first before settling into long-term relationships. This allows them to establish a strong personal reputation before introducing a partner into the public sphere. For Leonor, building that reputation is essential. She is expected to represent Spain not just domestically, but internationally, meeting world leaders, attending global events, and speaking on issues that shape the country's future. Her public image must project stability, maturity, and dedication. If her early years as heir were dominated by tabloid stories about dating rumors or relationship drama, it could undermine that carefully built image. That is why the palace prefers to keep her personal life as quiet as possible. There is also the matter of tradition. Although modern royals often marry for love, history shows that royal relationships have always carried enormous symbolic weight. The partner of a future monarch becomes part of the national story. Their personality, values, and public behavior all influence how the monarchy is perceived. Because of that, royal households often take a long-term view when thinking about potential partners. They are not simply asking, is this person right for Leonor? They are also asking, how would this person fit into the future of the monarchy? That level of responsibility can make palace officials extremely cautious. And while there is no official rule banning Leonor from dating, the environment around her makes it very difficult for any relationship to develop naturally. Privacy is limited, security is constant, and the expectations placed on her leave little room for a typical young adult lifestyle. Yet despite these constraints, many observers believe Leonor is handling the pressure with remarkable composure. In public appearances, she often appears confident, focused, and calm, qualities that suggest she understands the role she is preparing to inherit. Her speeches have grown more assured. Her posture reflects discipline from military training. And her interactions with citizens show the kind of careful empathy that modern monarchies rely on to maintain relevance. For the palace, this image of steady leadership is exactly what they want the public to see. Romantic speculation, on the other hand, is something they would rather avoid, for now. Of course, history suggests that this phase will not last forever. Eventually, the question of Leonor's future partner will inevitably return. When that time comes, the world will likely watch closely, just as it did when her father, King Felipe VI, introduced his relationship with Queen Letizia, a former journalist whose marriage into the royal family marked a modern turning point for the Spanish monarchy. That moment helped redefine what a royal marriage could look like in the modern era. And when Leonor eventually chooses her own partner, it may once again reflect the balance between tradition and modernity that defines Europe's surviving monarchies. But for now, the palace's priorities are clear. Leonor is still in the early stages of a lifelong responsibility. Her focus is on education, military service, and gradually stepping into the public role that awaits her. Romance, from the palace's perspective, can wait. Because before she becomes someone's partner, Leonor must first become something far more significant in the eyes of the nation. A queen in preparation. The more the public sees of Princess Leonor stepping into her future role, the clearer it becomes why the Spanish palace is being so careful about her personal life. What might look like strict control from the outside is, in many ways, a strategy shaped by history, responsibility, and the long-term survival of the monarchy. For royal households, the heir to the throne is never just an individual. They are an institution in the making. And for Leonor, that institutional responsibility has already begun. When she officially pledged loyalty to the Spanish Constitution on her 18th birthday, it marked a powerful moment in her journey toward the throne. Standing before Spain's parliament, she formally accepted the responsibilities that come with being the heir to the crown. The moment was symbolic, but it also carried a very practical message. Her life is no longer entirely her own. That ceremony reinforced the idea that Leonor is not simply preparing to inherit a title one day. She is already being introduced to the nation as its future head of state. For the palace, protecting that image is critical. Spain's monarchy has faced periods of intense scrutiny in recent years. Public trust in royal institutions can rise or fall quickly depending on how the family conducts itself. That is why the current royal household under King Felipe VI has focused heavily on discipline, transparency, and professionalism. The goal is simple: maintain stability. And in the world of modern monarchies, stability often depends on avoiding unnecessary distractions. Romantic relationships, especially those involving heirs to the throne, can easily become global media events. A single photograph of Leonor with a potential partner could trigger days of speculation across newspapers, television programs, and social media platforms. Questions would immediately follow. Who is the person? Where did they meet? What is their background? Did they have political connections? Could they influence the future queen? Those questions might seem exaggerated, but they are exactly the type of discussions royal advisors try to avoid. The Spanish royal household understands that even harmless rumors can quickly grow into major stories. And when that happens, the focus shifts away from Leonor's role as a future leader and toward narratives that the palace cannot fully control. That is why discretion has become one of the guiding principles of her early public life. Another reason the palace may appear cautious about potential suitors is the intense security environment surrounding Leonor. As the future monarch of Spain, she lives under constant protection. Every location she visits, every event she attends, and even many of her private movements are carefully coordinated. Introducing a romantic partner into that environment would dramatically complicate the security arrangements. Anyone connected to the princess would instantly become part of that protective system. Their movements, interactions, and public presence would all require coordination with royal security teams. For a young person who might simply want a normal relationship, that level of scrutiny could feel overwhelming. Because of this, palace advisors often prefer that heirs reach a certain level of maturity and independence before navigating those kinds of challenges. Leonor is still in the early stages of building her public identity. Her military training is one of the clearest examples of that preparation. Spain traditionally requires its future monarchs to understand the armed forces they will one day command ceremonially. By participating in structured military programs, Leonor is gaining first-hand experience with discipline, leadership, and national service. Those experiences shape how the public perceives her. They also strengthen the narrative the palace wants to emphasize, that Leonor is dedicated to duty above all else. For many citizens, that image matters. Modern monarchies survive largely through public support. Unlike the past, royal authority today depends heavily on trust and national goodwill. A future monarch who appears responsible, prepared, and focused on serving the country is far more likely to maintain that support. And that brings us back to the question of relationships. The palace is not necessarily blocking Leonor from ever having a partner. Instead, they appear to be carefully controlling when and how that stage of her life becomes public. Timing is everything in royal life. Many heirs across Europe have followed a similar path. They focus first on education, training, and official duties before eventually introducing a long-term partner to the public once their position within the monarchy is firmly established. This approach allows the public to see the heir as a leader first and a romantic figure second. For Leonor, that distinction may prove especially important. She represents a new generation of European royalty, young leaders expected to balance centuries-old traditions with the expectations of modern democratic societies. Her generation must appear relatable, yet also maintain the dignity associated with the crown. It is a delicate balance. Too much formality can make a royal family seem distant from the people they represent. But too much personal exposure can create controversies that damage public confidence. The palace is trying to navigate that balance carefully. By emphasizing Leonor's education, her military service, and her growing participation in official ceremonies, the royal household is gradually introducing her to the public as a future queen defined by responsibility. That narrative leaves little room for romantic headlines. But eventually, those headlines may come. History shows that the personal lives of royal heirs often become major national stories once the timing feels right. When a future monarch introduces a partner publicly, it can transform how the public views the monarchy's next chapter. The right relationship can even strengthen the institution by making it feel more modern and relatable. Yet for now, patience appears to be the palace's strategy. Leonor still has years of preparation ahead before she ultimately ascends the throne. During that time, her public role will expand step by step. She will attend more international events, represent Spain on the global stage, and gradually take on greater responsibilities within the royal household. Each of those steps builds the image of a future queen. And until that image is firmly established, the palace seems determined to keep the focus exactly where they want it, on duty, discipline, and the long road ahead. Because in the world of monarchy, timing shapes everything. And for Princess Leonor, the chapter about love may simply be waiting for the right moment to begin. As the public continues to watch the life of Princess Leonor unfold, another important layer begins to emerge, one that explains even more clearly why the palace prefers to keep her romantic life far away from the spotlight. It isn't just about tradition. It's about protecting the future of the crown. The Spanish monarchy has spent years rebuilding its reputation and strengthening its connection with the public. When King Felipe VI ascended the throne in 2014, he inherited not only the responsibilities of the crown but also the challenge of restoring confidence in the institution during a time of political and social change in Spain. From the very beginning of his reign, Felipe VI made it clear that the monarchy would operate with stricter standards, greater transparency, and a stronger sense of accountability. That decision has shaped how the royal household manages every aspect of public life, including the upbringing of Leonor. The palace understands that Leonor represents the next chapter of the monarchy. Her success as a future queen will depend largely on how the public perceives her character, judgment, and sense of responsibility. This is why her preparation is so carefully structured. Her education, her speeches, her ceremonial appearances, and even the tone of her public image are designed to build trust over time. The message is subtle but powerful. Leonor is being prepared not just to inherit the throne, but to lead with stability and dignity. And in that context, relationships become a sensitive subject. The moment a royal heir begins dating publicly, attention inevitably shifts. Media outlets begin focusing on the partner. Speculation grows. Private details become headlines. And sometimes, narratives develop that the palace cannot fully control. Royal advisors know that once that door opens, it is very difficult to close. For this reason, many monarchies prefer a gradual approach. First comes the phase of preparation, education, training, and early public duties. Then comes the stage where the heir becomes a recognized national figure, trusted by citizens and respected internationally. Only after that foundation is solid do royal households typically allow the personal story of relationships to enter the public narrative. Leonor appears to be in that first phase right now. Her military training is one of the most visible symbols of that preparation. By participating in rigorous programs within Spain's armed forces, she is following a path that connects her directly to the traditions of the crown. The future monarch serves symbolically as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Understanding that role firsthand strengthens the bond between the crown and the institutions that support the country's stability. For Leonor, these experiences are not just ceremonial. They are shaping how she will eventually represent Spain on the global stage. Every speech she gives, every appearance she makes, and every step in her training adds another layer to the image of a disciplined, thoughtful leader in preparation. From the palace's perspective, that narrative must remain clear. Romantic speculation, even when harmless, could easily blur that focus. Imagine the headlines if the public suddenly believed Leonor had a serious partner. Newspapers would shift their attention almost overnight. Instead of analyzing her speeches or her leadership training, coverage might revolve around the identity, personality, and background of the person beside her. For a future queen, that kind of attention can reshape the story being told about her. Royal advisors know that timing determines whether such attention strengthens or weakens the monarchy. Introduce a partner too early, and the relationship becomes the defining narrative of the heir's early years. Introduce a partner later, when the heir's leadership image is already firmly established, and the relationship can appear as a natural, human chapter in the life of a respected national figure. This is the balance the Spanish palace seems to be protecting. There is also another important factor that often goes unspoken: the enormous pressure placed on anyone who becomes romantically connected to a royal heir. The partner of a future monarch does not simply marry into a family. They marry into a national institution. Their behavior, their career choices, their public statements, and even their friendships become part of a larger public conversation. Every detail of their life may be examined, analyzed, and discussed across the media landscape. For someone unprepared for that environment, the experience can be extremely challenging. The palace understands that reality very well. By delaying public relationships, they are not only protecting Leonor, they may also be protecting the person who might one day stand beside her. Because when that moment eventually arrives, the world will pay attention. Leonor's future partner will likely become one of the most talked about figures in Spain, if not across Europe. Their story will symbolize a new generation of monarchy, just as the marriage of King Felipe VI and Queen Letizia once represented a modern turning point for the royal family. But those moments carry their greatest impact when they happen at the right time. For now, Leonor's path remains focused on preparation. Her public role will continue to expand gradually. She will appear at more national ceremonies. She will represent Spain internationally. She will meet leaders, speak on important occasions, and slowly transition from a princess in training to a central figure within the monarchy. Each step will shape how the public understands her future reign. And that is ultimately the reason the palace seems so cautious about her personal life. The crown is not simply preparing Leonor to inherit a title. It is preparing her to represent an entire nation. Love stories may capture headlines, but for a future queen, the first and most important story is the one about leadership, responsibility, and the steady building of public trust. So while rumors may continue to circulate and curiosity about her personal life will likely grow, the palace appears determined to keep the focus exactly where they believe it belongs. On the future of the Spanish crown. And on the young woman quietly preparing to carry that responsibility, Princess Leonor.